Oh, I've got to go and drink glühwein with my friends. Bye. Hello, everyone. Oh, getting messages, getting phone calls, all sorts of excitement. Um, I haven't managed to do anything about my pixelation. Hello, Kay. How you going? Hello, Joan. Lovely to see you. I'm so pleased that you could join us, even without Craig and Karen and Riley. Um, awesome news. So it's not as cold a night as it's been down here for a little while, but it's still cold enough for us to appreciate a warm drink. It's not as bad as the last couple of weeks, Kay. That's absolutely true. But in preparation for the colder weather, hello, Anne-Marie, how are you? In preparation for the colder weather, I think this is a very good session to do tonight. Now, I thought about trying to relocate to the kitchen, and I thought that's going to be fraught with danger and worry, so we didn't do that. I've got some that I prepared earlier, and we're going to go through the process that I use to make my glühwein or my mulled wine. I'm very embarrassed that I left my umlaut off glühwein. Sebastian, I don't know if you're watching, but I apologise. I can't work out. I'm quite good at my little symbols for French accents and things like that at cedillas, but I'm not very good at my German symbols, shortcuts on the keyboard. Anyway, I'll work it out eventually. Whatever we're going to call it, though, glühwein, grog, mulled wine, it's something that I think a lot of people have maybe a bad idea of, because usually it's made from really cheap, nasty wine. And if you start with a really cheap, nasty base, then you're not going to end up with something really fabulous. On the other hand, we don't want to be using ridiculously expensive wine either, because we're going to be heating it up. We're adding flavour to it along the way. Hello, Shell. How are you going? Food-friendly cocktail. Awesome. Tacos and whiskey smash. How delicious. And if there's anyone else out there who didn't feel like a hot drink tonight, sangria is also an option. Peter and Karen, how are you going? Don't let it boil. You don't want to lose that alcohol. So I've got my little jug of mulled wine. I've shared it with the rest of the team here, and they're all off glogging away in the kitchen having a lovely time. But before I start drinking, I'm going to go through the process of making it. So again, as I say, and I think, Shell, your point is absolutely valid. It's not really food friendly drink. It's kind of something that you drink outside around a fire pit, or when you've been out shopping, or you've been at the snow and you're cold and you want to warm up, and it's either a before dinner drink or an after dinner drink or a instead of dinner drink. No, we don't want to say that's bad. That's not very responsible service of alcohol. Thank you, Seb. I can pronounce it, I just can't write it, so I apologise. Thank you, though. What we're going to do is go through the process of making it, and then we're going to taste it and talk about it. And then I've got a couple of other things. Kay's used Mount Majura Mongoose, pork porterhouse and steamed veggies. How delicious. Hello, Kevin and Emily. How are you? We need to talk mezcal for our next break, but in the meantime, let's talk glühwein. So I'm going to pretend I have a bowl here. I'm going to pretend this is my saucepan for getting ready. So it's quite simple. Oh, I've got the fire on as well. I had to show you because I said to Dad, I can't be talking about winter warming drinks without a fire. So it's crackling away joyously behind me. A couple of other things that you might like to think about grabbing if you're making glühwein, because it's so lovely to drink it outside, is a nice little thermos flask that you can put it in afterwards. That's Richard's for out in the vineyard, but I can see him filling that up with glühwein and only getting half of the pruning done. And as I said before, use a wine that's not terrible, but not your best wine in the wine rack. So I've used Devil Ben Creek Pinot Noir because we're at Moorooduc, and this is our go-to everyday unoaked Pinot Noir. I think that for a mulled wine, an unoaked style, to my taste, is preferable. I think a Monjuice can work really well. I think a Grenache can be terrific. A Shiraz Grenache from South Australia has lots of lovely fruity flavours. What we want is lovely red fruity flavours to go with the spices that we're adding in. So to our saucepan, we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of water and 1/4 of a cup of sugar. Now, if that's not sweet enough for you, you can add more sugar at this stage, or if you taste it when it's all finished and it's still not quite sweet enough, you can always add a little bit more sugar and stir it in because it's hot. It'll dissolve really well. Or a little spoonful of honey as well would be really delicious. I quite like it not too sweet because that's just me. I'm sweet enough without the added sugar. Haha. So I'll keep to my 1/4 of a cup of sugar for a bottle of wine. So once the sugar is dissolved in the water, heat it up over on the stove. Get it up to almost boiling point. It can be boiling at this stage. Coconut sugar. Oh, very good, Kate. To your sugar syrup, once the sugar's all dissolved in the water, you want to add a couple of sticks of cinnamon. So we'll pop those in. You want to add a couple of star anise. Now, this is, I believe, quite a traditional German recipe. Other countries where they drink mulled wine might add some cardamom or black pepper, those kind of things, and you're very welcome to do that as well, but I kept it fairly pure and simple. So a couple of star anise, a little bit more cinnamon, and I've got about 20 cloves here, and they go in. Then you get half an orange, and you peel the skin off. So just get a peeler, and this is the best bit of the job because you get that lovely squirt of orange oil. So if you point it at the saucepan, then all that orange oil goes into the saucepan. So half an orange worth of skin, and then cut it in half, and half an orange worth of juice in there. If you want to use the whole orange, you can. But that is all you need. Then you add your bottle of wine to the saucepan. Hello, Zach and Jack. How are you going? I know it does take a little bit longer than expected, but just stick with it. Let it kind of zhuzh away. You don't want it quite to be blipping. You want it to be just below simmering point for about 20 minutes. And so you heat it up slowly. Keep it just below simmering point for about 20 minutes minimum. Hello, Fiji. Hello, Craig and team. Lovely to see you. Thank you for popping your head in. It's nice and cold here. So once it's heated up and it's blipped away quietly for about 20 minutes, you can leave it on the stove, just sort of heat, just staying just below boiling point for as long as you like. As long as you don't boil it, you don't lose any alcohol. And the longer you keep it warm, you just sort of, you're extracting more of the spices from your cinnamon and your star anise. Then when it's finished, you want a heat-proof glass. It's a good idea to warm it up before you put the hot wine in because sometimes the glass can crack. I've got a cafe latte glass here, but I know Karen sent me a beautiful picture of their little Norwegian wine glasses. I've popped some of my orange peel in my glass and a star anise as a garnish, and I'm going to whack this cinnamon stick in there too, because why not? Okay, Seb, a little German trick is to add apple juice instead of sugar if you don't like it too sweet. That's a lovely idea, and I was actually coming on to apple juice in a moment. So I'll just pour myself a little bit of Glühwein to keep me warm and lubricated. Cheers, everyone. What do we say in German? It's not Skoll, is it? That's somewhere else, I think. Anyway, cheers. It's nice and warm. It's got lots of spice through it. It's not too sweet for me with that little bit of sugar in it. It's delicious. Prost. That's Russian, isn't it, Peter and Karen? That's very bad. Anyway, Sebastian will tell us. What I was going to suggest is I think apple juice is a fantastic idea to use instead of sugar to sweeten. German, okay, thank you. Apple juice is a great way to sweeten it without using sugar. But if you want to make a non-alcoholic version of this, Prost is German, thank you. That's just showing my ignorance, so I apologise profusely. If you want to make a non-alcoholic version of this, apple juice instead of wine works very, very well. It works really nicely with all the spices and the orange juice. And if you want a little bit of red colour to it, you can use my old friend, the blackcurrant cordial. I do think, and we talked about this before, but warm Ribena in winter is a lovely thing. And if you want to make that into a grown-up drink, then you can get your Ribena and you can get your warm water and you can get your gin and put a measure of gin in there, like you're making a gin and tonic, but we're making it with Ribena and hot water instead of tonic. Slice of lemon, it's terrific. It's a really quick way of getting that kind of warm, sweet, yummy character without all the cooking over the stovetop. So if you think that sounds terrible, don't feel you have to do it, but maybe try it before you diss it. So this kind of drink makes me think of the snow, and of course we don't have snow here on the Mornington Peninsula, but you know, in the parts of Europe that tend to drink mulled wine, then you get those lovely Christmas markets, snow at Christmas time, really beautiful opportunities to need to warm up. And the last time I had really good mulled wine was actually in Japan at the snow there. So anywhere it's cold, mulled wine works really, really well. As I said before, I reckon it's a really good thing to make for a winter party when you're having some outdoor time. Hello, Nina. How you going? Karen's always up for a warm Ribena. Absolutely. Try zhuzhing it up with a little bit of gin, Karen. You'll never go back. I'm a very bad influence. But yeah, it's a really great, if you're feeling a little bit under the weather, it's kind of like a big warm hug in a glass. And it's a great way to make life a little more festive, I think. Food and wine matching is a bit tricky, as we talked about before. I think, again, when I think of this, I think of all of the things that you get at German Christmas markets. You know, you can have your pretzels or a nice spiced bun or something like that would work really well with this. I don't know what the tradition in Germany is to eat with this particular drink, or whether it's just a drink to have on its own before a meal or when you're out in the cold. But I do think that it works rather wonderfully. Another thing that it reminds me of, it's a warm version of an Australian sparkling Shiraz, which is a terrible thing to say. But sparkling Shiraz is another thing that I quite enjoy drinking at the snow. I don't warm it up, I promise. I serve that cold, but it does similar things. It's a little bit sweet. It's a little bit spicy. It's got the bubbles, which is nice. So that's a different way to go for cold weather. I mentioned a couple of other cocktails, which are things that have kind of gone a little bit out of fashion in the world of drinking. And I think warm cocktails in general, you know, everyone's talking about, you know, their sexy giant ice cubes and all that kind of thing to get your cocktail really cold. But if you're going for a warm cocktail, then that's not going to be the issue. And another drink that I tried relatively recently and was pleasantly surprised by was hot buttered rum. I don't know if any of you guys have tried it or if you had a go with the recipe that I sent out yesterday. But if you haven't tried it and it interests you, it kind of tastes a little bit like rum flavored cookies. because it's got all those spices in it, and the rum kind of brings out that slightly cookie dough kind of a flavour to it as well. And the butter is amazing. So give the hot buttered rum a go if you're feeling like something a little bit exotic. And a really good thing to use for your hot buttered rum is spiced rum. Now I've got this golden spiced rum that I bought for our daiquiris that we made last year. Anne-Marie, it's not quite like butter menthols, but it does a similar, it's got that kind of, because it doesn't really have the menthol character, but the rum takes the place of the menthol. And because you've got all this, you've got a bit of cinnamon and a bit of vanilla in there and things like that, then that kind of ramps up that sort of cookie dough kind of cuddly feeling from your hot buttered rum. So if you do like a rum and that sounds vaguely appealing, I highly recommend giving that a go. I think it's rather awesome. That brings us to your classic hot winter drink, and that's your classic hot toddy. Sometimes excellent, warm caramelized almonds or a bag of chestnuts on the side. Just mulled wine without food pairing. I thought that was probably the case. Thank you very much. Hello, Barry. How are you going? Have you got some mulled wine on the side, or perhaps just a little glass of something? It's, as I said before, it's not quite as cold as it's been for the last few nights. Of course, totally to be expected when you make a plan. But I think it's going down. It's going down very well in the kitchen. They really enjoyed it. And they seem to have jollied up a bit in there as well. That's the other thing to remember when you're drinking hot drinks with alcohol in them. The heat actually helps the alcohol to get into your bloodstream a little faster. So it'll go to your head a bit quicker. It gives you rosy cheeks. You can see I'm already getting my rosy cheeks from having a couple of sips. And it warms up your fingers and your toes and your nose, but it also can make you a little bit silly. The other thing that I find when you're drinking, hello, Angela. Oh no, another COVID household. Lovely to hear from you, Angela, and all of your team. G&T is always good. The wine cocktails are great. So, Barry, Glühwein up in Hotham. Yeah, absolutely. Once you get to the snow, there's absolutely no excuse not to have a bit of Glühwein. What was I saying? Oh, yes, it does go to your head a little bit quickly, so you can get a bit silly and a bit giggly. And because it's warm and because it's a little bit sweet, it does tend to encourage you to drink it a little bit faster than a cold drink. So just a little warning, sip on it slowly, don't sock it back. Well, if you want to sock it back, by all means, but just maybe go for a little walk around the house before you have a second one, just to check how your legs are going, because they can get to you all of a sudden, these drinks. The other thing I was going to talk to you guys about was sangria. So sangria is probably more of a classic wine cocktail without the heat. And I think it's a really great party drink to make. A lot of people get sort of snobby about wine cocktails and think it's disrespectful to the wine, which I find interesting. And again, if you were using a $100 bottle of Premier Cru Burgundy or an $80 bottle of Moorooduc McIntyre Pinot, then yeah, it's a bit of a waste of the wine to adulterate it with other ingredients. But in the same way that we're very happy to make cocktails out of spirits that are of good to very good quality, we should be happy to make wine cocktails out of wine, I think, because every now and again it's fun to just be a bit silly with wine. You don't need to be serious and somber all the time when we're drinking wine. So sangria, I think, is a lovely thing to make for a party. I particularly like a white sangria, and that's the recipe that I sent you on the link yesterday. It's probably a bit, well, you can drink it any time of year, but it's really good in summer. It's really good with a paella or a bit of Mexican food. Works very nicely with a sangria. And a white sangria is less traditional than a red sangria, but I think it's rather lovely because you start off with I would again use a Devil Bend Creek Chardonnay maybe, or a Devil Bend Creek Pinot Gris, but you can use sort of a nice, non too fruity, certainly not too oaky white wine. And I would add some sugar syrup to taste. If you look at the recipe, you've got some quantities there. I'd also slice up some oranges and lemons and limes. And a trick with oranges and lemons and limes, if you don't grow them yourself and you buy them from the supermarket or from the local greengrocer or whatever, just give them a bath in hot water before you use them, because they're often waxed when you buy them from the shops. And the wax, there's nothing wrong with the wax. It's not going to hurt you, but it just maybe makes the drink not taste quite as good. So if you give them a bit of a soak in not quite boiling water, but pretty hot water, just to dissolve the wax on the surface, that'll make for a better tasting drink in the end. You can do that with your citrus fruit for any drink that you're using the rind for. And if you're lucky enough to have a lemon tree and an orange tree and a lime tree in your backyard, even better, you can use it straight off the tree, and then you don't have to worry about anything except for the occasional spider or creepy crawly. So with my sangria recipe, you can either make it in a big jug or you can make it in a big bowl like a punch, and you slice up your citrus fruit. I'll slice it in half and then slice it in slices. So you've got sort of your half moon shaped bits, but you can cut that into quarters again. Pop that in the bowl with the sugar syrup. And then if you're going to use some flavoured spirit or flavoured liqueur to amp it up a bit, I think for a white sangria, either use an orange flavoured liqueur like Cointreau or Grand Marnier or Triple Sec, or even better is a peach flavoured liqueur. If you can find a peach schnapps or a peach liqueur, just put a bit of a splash of that in on top of the fruit. If you can get some nice peaches or nectarines, and they don't have to be perfect again, because we're going to be soaking them in alcohol, so that'll pull some of the flavour out of the fruit and it'll soften the fruit up a little bit as well. Mix them all up together and then just add your wine. You can add your wine up to 24 hours beforehand, and put it in the fridge if you've got a fridge big enough for your container. If you don't have a fridge big enough for your container, then put it somewhere cool if you're making it a long time ahead of time, or just make it about an hour before you want to drink it, because an hour of sort of soaking together is pretty good for the fruit and the alcohol to come together. Give it a bit of a stir, and then when you're getting ready to serve it, just add lots of ice. If you've got a big punch bowl full of it, half a bag to a bag of ice from the service station is great. If you've got a big jug full, plenty of ice, because it doesn't matter if it dilutes it a little bit, but if you put lots of ice in, it'll tend to melt more slowly than if you just put a little bit of ice in it. So you get less dilution, better cooling. So that's another tip for making a cold cocktail that's not too watery. And then you can go crazy with your decorations. You can get mint leaves, you can get pineapple sage, you can get edible flowers, nasturtiums, pansies, rose petals even, and sprinkle them over the top and use them as garnish. They can be really rather lovely as garnish, and you can let your imagination, as long as you know that it's edible, then it's absolutely fine to use. I probably wouldn't put rocket in there. It's a bit spicy, but, up to you. But I think that's a really lovely, refreshing summer wine cocktail. As I say, make a big punch bowl full of it, make a jug full of it, keep it in the fridge, serve it up with your Mexican food or your Spanish food, or even just with a really great barbecue. It's very refreshing and pretty delicious. Again, remind people that because there's a bit of extra sugar in it, it'll make it taste less alcoholic and easier to drink. So just remind people that a glass of sangria made the way I've put the recipe together is the same as having a normal glass of wine, basically. So it's not a low alcohol cocktail. It's like having a glass of wine. If you want to make it low alcohol, you can always put half sangria and then top it up with soda water or lemonade, depending on your need for extra sugar. And that'll make it a nice long drink that's half as alcoholic. So that's quite a good way on a hot day to kind of just keep your alcohol intake a little bit more regulated if you need to do that. Other things that we can do when we're talking about wine cocktails. So we've done our glühwein. We've done less giddy, less silly. Absolutely. Emily, for a red sangria, again, I'd use the same kind of wine that I'm using for my glühwein, so a relatively low oak content Pinot Noir or Grenache or Shiraz Grenache or something that's, good but not fancy. Hello, Leanne. I know that sangria. We made a huge batch of that for the after party of Jack and Nick's wedding. It was so fun. Great way to kind of just ease out of a big event from the night before as well. So Emily's asked what liqueur I'd suggest with a red sangria, and again, you can be as adventurous as you want to be, but a classic liqueur to use would be something like a cassis, creme de cassis, or a chambord, which is I think blackberry flavored, but it's similar to creme de cassis. If you wanted to go a bit more hardcore with adding a bit of spirit, which some people do, then you can add some vodka or some gin or some tequila or some mezcal to either your red or your white sangria. Don't add too much because you don't want to turn it into rocket fuel, but a little bit will give it a little bit of a kick. But yes, I think creme de cassis is particularly good to bring out the. And also, if you're making a red sangria, instead of using peach or nectarine, I still use the orange and the lemon, maybe a bit less lime, but maybe an extra orange in there is particularly good in a red sangria. And then strawberries and raspberries, maybe some blueberries. Keep it to red berry flavours, and that's pretty awesome. Angela, I don't think it was quite breakfast. It was probably more brunch, but after a wedding, it is absolutely the Ribena girl in me with the cassis. And if you don't have cassis and you do have Ribena, then you can add a bit of that to give it a bit more zhuzh to your red sangria. And if then you're feeling like it doesn't have enough kick, a little bit of vodka, a little bit of mezcal, something like that could work really, really well. Even a little bit of Spanish brandy. So the Spanish will tend to put a little bit of brandy in. That's a more traditional way to make a sangria. I remember the first time I tasted sangria, I was 18. I was backpacking around Europe with my friend Abby. Hi, Abby, if you're there. I don't think you're watching, but anyway. We were backpacking around Europe. We got to Spain. We had no money. Like we were kind of surviving on $20 a day, which back in 1991 you could actually afford a youth hostel plus a little bit of food. If we had a train pass, and we were doing it tough. But we had a few. We'd make sure that we'd save up for some little special treats. So we got to Spain and we went, oh, we should try sangria. We went to the supermarket and we bought a Tetra pack of sangria, the cheapest that we could find. It was awful, but we drank it anyway because we paid for it. And when you're 18 and you haven't had an alcoholic beverage for a little while, a Tetra pack of sangria in the south of Spain is quite fun. Zach and Jack, there are a lot of Spanish bars along Johnson Street in the 90s and noughties that use sangria as an excuse for making rocket fuel. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people do, but we're now at a more sophisticated stage of our existence, and we don't need to drink sangria out of Tetra packs, and we don't need to put a bottle of brandy in to kind of soup it up. I think use some semi-decent wine, use some really nice fruit, give it a good soak together so that it gets, because I think one of the loveliest things about sangria is how it pulls that orange and lemon juice out of the fruit, but also the oils out of the skins. Really delicious. Oh, Angela, Taco Bill's in South Melbourne. Wow, that would have been very authentic. So Sangria as well. Sangria has probably even worse of a name as a drink than Glühwein or mulled wine because people used it to disguise the fact that they were serving really crappy wine. And you can still do that, but I say life is too short to drink crappy wine, even in your wine cocktails. And I think that it's very important that you treat your body as a temple and only put semi-decent wine in it, if not very, very good wine in it. That's my lesson for today. Oh. Well, guys, I know I usually have more to say, but we've got to warm ourselves up to next week. Next week we're starting pack 3. And I can't even remember which wine we're starting with. I think it was a Pinot Noir, maybe. I can't remember. Anyway, I will send you an email on Monday with all those details. We'll get back into being serious about the wine and the food matching. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. Yeah, I know, Shell, that was a terrible segue. I'm like, I've run out of things to say, so we're going to talk about box 3. I love a cocktail, but I love to get back to what we're all here for, which is drinking some beautiful wine. So, if you haven't ordered your box 3 yet, and you want to get started with us next Thursday, then get that order in. Thank you, Zach and Jack. I think it is going to be a fabulous pack. I think we're going to have lots of fun with it. Peter's delivering next Wednesday for anyone in Melbourne and anyone down here on the peninsula who needs a delivery. If you can get your order in before Wednesday, then we'll get ourselves sorted and someone will bring it to you, whether it be me or Linda or Nigel or Jeff or Jeremy. One of us will bring it to your door. So get those orders in. If you've got the wine, I will send you an email. I promise. I know I was a bit slack this week. I'm so sorry. It's been a bit of a crazy couple of weeks. But I will get the email out. Oh, Zach and Jack, is it delicious? Did it work well? Cheers. Mine's cooling down a bit. I think that's another reason that people drink it a bit fast, because it starts to cool down and you kind of go, oh, better drink it before it gets cold. Particularly if you're out in the snow in your mittens and your woolly hat and your scarf. So that's it from me about mulled wine, Glühwein, grog, sangria, other hot alcoholic beverages. Don't forget, you can always make yourself a hot chocolate and put a glug of your favourite spirit in there, and that's pretty jolly good as well. If you're feeling the need for a hot, slightly alcoholic drink. And I didn't talk about hot toddies. I just realised I got completely off the topic. But your hot toddy is super easy. It's good when you've got a bit of a cold. I'm not really into drinking alcohol when I'm feeling really sick, but a lot of people swear by it. You just make yourself boil some water, get a big scoop of honey in the bottom of a mug, maybe a little bit of ginger if you like that kind of thing, and some lemon, hot water, and then a glug of, traditionally it'll be whiskey, either bourbon or rye or Irish whiskey or Scotch. But if you prefer rum or brandy, then you can use that instead. And a lot of people, as I say, swear by a hot toddy when they're feeling sick. Nurse it in front of the telly or before you go to bed. It will help you get to sleep, but don't have too many because then they'll wake you up in the middle of the night with a sore head. Good work, Angela. Well, whatever gets you through your current sickness, I think is good, and alcohol in the right amounts is very helpful in many occasions. So now I've covered off hot toddy. You can also, with your hot toddy, pop a little cinnamon stick in there and give it a stir to make it a bit posh. Cinnamon sticks are great. You can reuse them as well. Don't ever don't ever feel like you need to throw your cinnamon stick out after using it once, particularly if you're using it in a hot cocktail. You can dry it out and use it again, and then it's not wasted. Okay, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. It's been awesome. I'm looking forward to starting our next box next week. I will send you an email on Monday, I promise. And until then, enjoy your wine cocktails and your Glühwein. Cheers, everyone.